because it's Mike Tyson. So it's like, in most cases, you would say, yes, I got a big fight on the road coming, you know?
In the 1980s and early 90s, few boxers embodied technical brilliance like Mike the Bodysnatcher McCallum. A master of precision, rhythm, and punishing body shots, McCallum carved his name into boxing history with surgical control inside the ring. Yet, for all his class and skill, his career was also shadowed by rivalries, grudges, and bitter tension with fighters who couldn't stand his presence.
Watson is still pushing these hands out, but his punches don't have the same quality.
Whether it was envy, frustration, or personal disrespect, McCallum managed to get under the skin of some of boxing's biggest names. This is the story of 10 boxers who hated Mike McCallum the most, not just because of his fists, but because of the cold, calculating confidence that made him one of the most feared technicians in the sport. 1. James Toney. There's no question that James Lights Out Toney tops the list. Their trilogy remains one of the fiercest rivalries in boxing history. Toney, with his brash personality and slick defensive style, could never quite stomach how McCallum pushed him to the limit in every fight. The first bout in 1991 was supposed to be Toney's coronation, a chance to shine against a veteran. Instead, McCallum schooled him in many rounds, forcing Toney to dig deep for a controversial draw. Behind the scenes, Toney fumed. He accused McCallum of being dirty, of using elbows and holding too much. McCallum, calm as ever, simply replied, "You can't teach experience." Their rematches were wars, brutal, tactical, and personal. Even years later, when asked about McCallum, Toney refused to give him full credit. It wasn't just rivalry, it was hate mixed with grudging respect. McCallum had made Toney look human, and that stung the proud champion deeply. 2. Julian Jackson. Julian, the Hawk. Jackson was pure power, a knockout artist with terrifying punching ability. When McCallum fought Jackson in 1986 for the WBA light middleweight title, the tension was thick. Jackson entered confident that one punch would end the fight. But McCallum, ever patient, absorbed the early storm and unleashed a masterclass of timing, stopping Jackson in the second round. Jackson never forgot it. To him, McCallum wasn't just an opponent. He was an irritant, a man who exposed weaknesses that Jackson never wanted to acknowledge. He later admitted that McCallum's bodywork haunted him. He didn't just hit you, he drained your strength. 3. Donald Curry. Donald Curry, the Lone Star Cobra, was once hailed as one of boxing's brightest stars. Slick, sharp, and precise, he was supposed to move through the divisions with ease. But in 1987, when he met Mike McCallum, everything changed. Curry started strong, using his jab and combinations beautifully, but McCallum was patient. Then came the left hook that changed Curry's life. It was a single devastating punch that knocked Curry out cold. The defeat sent shockwaves through the boxing world, and through Curry's pride. He later claimed that McCallum had caught him lucky, that he was drained from the weight cut, that it wasn't a true reflection of his ability. But deep down, Curry knew McCallum had outthought him. 4. Michael Watson. When Mike McCallum faced Michael Watson in 1990, it was more than just a title defense. It was a clash of pride between a Caribbean legend and a rising British star. Watson, loved by UK fans for his intelligence and composure, viewed McCallum as arrogant. McCallum, in turn, saw Watson as a pretender who hadn't earned his stripes. From the opening bell, the fight was tense. Watson boxed beautifully, but McCallum's relentless body shots and experience wore him down. McCallum eventually stopped Watson in the 11th round, breaking his spirit. Watson left the ring bitter, calling McCallum cold and cruel. 5. Sumbu Kalambai. Italy's Sumbu Kalambai was one of the most skilled middleweights of the late 80s. He defeated McCallum in 1988 in one of the biggest upsets of the decade. McCallum, undefeated at the time, had underestimated Kalambai's movement and defense. Kalambai boxed masterfully, making McCallum miss and countering beautifully. After the fight, McCallum downplayed Kalambai's performance, calling him a runner and a survivor. Kalambai took it personally. The rematch in 1991 was filled with animosity, both men glaring at each other during weigh-ins. McCallum won that time, and instead of showing respect, he smirked and said, "Now you can't run anymore." 6. Harold Bomber Graham, known for his slick defense and unorthodox style, was one of Britain's most elusive fighters. When his name was linked to McCallum in the late 80s, negotiations quickly turned sour. Graham believed McCallum's camp disrespected him, calling him overrated and saying he'd never fought real fighters. The fight never happened, but the bad blood remained. Graham often mentioned McCallum as the one who dodged me. McCallum countered, saying Graham priced himself out. The verbal jabs continued for years. 7. Steve Collins, the Celtic Warrior. Steve Collins was never one to back down, and when his path crossed McCallum's in the early 90s, sparks flew. Collins was brash, outspoken, and loved to get into opponents' heads. McCallum, stoic and composed, found his antics childish. Their 1990 bout was a war. Collins brought relentless pressure, but McCallum's precision proved superior. After losing by decision, Collins accused McCallum of running and stealing rounds. McCallum simply shrugged and said, "Winners don't explain." Collins took it as a slap in the face. Even years later, when asked about McCallum, Collins called him the most frustrating man I ever fought. The resentment was mutual. McCallum once said Collins talked more than he boxed. 8. Mike McCallum versus Roy Jones Jr. When McCallum fought Roy Jones Jr. in 1996, he was already past his prime. But for McCallum, pride still burned. Jones, in his athletic peak, treated the bout as a showcase, dancing, taunting, and showboating. McCallum hated it. He fought hard, but Jones was too fast, too sharp. After the fight, McCallum accused Jones of disrespecting him, saying, "He didn't fight like a man. He fought like a clown." Jones fired back, calling McCallum old school, bitter, and jealous. 9. Reggie Johnson. Reggie Johnson, a crafty and confident southpaw, met McCallum in 1991 for the WBA middleweight title. It was a close, technical fight that ended in a controversial decision for McCallum. Johnson felt robbed. Afterward, Johnson claimed McCallum used dirty tactics and headbutts. McCallum laughed it off, saying Johnson needed excuses for losing. That comment lit a fire. For years, Johnson called McCallum the dirtiest fighter I ever faced. Even when asked decades later, Johnson's tone softened only slightly. He admitted McCallum was great, but still couldn't forgive the way he fought him that night. For Johnson, it wasn't just a loss. It was personal insult wrapped in professionalism. 10. Milton McCrory. Milton McCrory, a sharp boxer with power, was part of the Kronk gym legacy. When McCallum was climbing through the ranks, McCrory often criticized him publicly, calling him boring and too defensive. McCallum never forgot those comments. When their paths nearly crossed for a potential fight in the mid-'80s, negotiations fell apart amid mutual disdain. McCrory believed McCallum didn't deserve big fights. McCallum thought McCrory was overrated. The tension spilled into press conferences and interviews, each throwing subtle insults at the other. Though they never fought, their animosity became part of boxing lore, a rivalry born of ego rather than action. McCallum's calm arrogance and McCrory's pride made them natural enemies. Mike McCallum's career was one of brilliance wrapped in bitterness. A fighter who deserved far more recognition, he was both respected and resented. The boxers who hated him did so not only because he beat them, but because of how he beat them, with skill, control, and unshakable confidence. To McCallum, boxing was a game of discipline, not emotion. But to those he defeated, or even those he dismissed, his icy professionalism felt like mockery. Over time, that mix of envy and frustration turned into hatred, and yet history remembers him not for the grudges, but for the artistry. The Bodysnatcher remains one of boxing's purest craftsmen, a man who turned every fight into a lesson and every rivalry into legend.